welcome to this week's edition of Treetop Environmental News. I am your anchor, Miley. A voracious crop-destroying pest has evolved to feed upon the very GMO product that was designed to eliminate it. Wired.com reported that the triumph over corn rootworms was one of biotech's greatest success stories, saving billions of dollars in crops each year. So-called BT corn currently makes up more than 3/4 of the total grown in the U.S., a lack of crop diversity that could spell disaster if the resistant cornworms spread. The crop itself is not to blame, say scientists, but rather mismanaged by farmers, corporations, and lawmakers that has led to the squandering of whatever benefits have been gained by the use of genetically modified crops. Arctic sea ice has slowed dramatically in recent weeks, thanks in large part to abnormally warm air and water temperatures. Sea ice now sits at record low levels for mid-February. According to the National Snow and Ice Data Center, as of February 18th, sea ice covered about 14.36 million square kilometers in Arctic ice. The previous low on this date was 14.37 million square kilometers in 2006. The main culprit, in addition to overall trend of global warming, is likely the rash of warm temperatures. With the polar vortex bringing cold air down to the U.S., this winter warmer temperatures have been the norm in the Arctic. For February 1st through 17th, temperatures were 7.2 degrees to 14.4 degrees Fahrenheit above normal for much of the Arctic. Some areas have been even warmer. Right now, the Arctic is pretty warm everywhere. If I look at temperature anomalies, there's a huge anomaly over the Barents Sea and the Sea of Okhotsk of about 10 degrees Celsius above normal, said Julian Strove, a senior scientist at the National Snow and Ice Data Center. Strove also said that warm waters in the North Atlantic have slowed ice growth, which is part of a decades-long trend due to both natural variability and human influences. The decline in sea ice is one of the key indicators of climate change. Sea ice in January, the last full month for which data is available, has declined 3.2% per decade since 1979 compared to the 1981 to 2012 average. That equals roughly 18,500 square miles of ice lost per decade, the same area as Vermont and New Hampshire combined. This past January ranked as the fourth lowest year on record, with 2011 being the all-time record lowest. BT Petroleum, the company that killed the Gulf of Mexico by spilling millions of gallons of oil and spraying millions of gallons of chemicals to hide it, all in the ocean, is again doing business with the United States military and other federal contracts. In response to the thick blanket of smog that settled over Paris last week, Prime Minister Jean-Marc Ayrault limited city traffic on Monday to drivers with odd-numbered license plates. On Tuesday, only drivers with even-numbered plates can use their vehicles. Prime Minister said he is aware of the difficulties that this may cause in the daily life of Parisians, but this extra step is necessary. The Prime Minister said he trusts the spirit of responsibility in citizens of each and everyone. A new study led by NASA and the University of Leeds has confirmed that natural forests in the Amazon remove more carbon dioxide from the atmosphere than they emit. This finding resolves a long-standing debate about a key component of the overall carbon balance of the Amazon basin. Climate change is a threat multiplier and a critical component of future defense strategies, according to the Pentagon's Quadrennial Defense Review 2014 released yesterday. The 2014 QDR review states, "Climate change poses another significant challenge for the United States and the world at large. As greenhouse gas emissions increase, sea levels are rising, average global temperatures are increasing, and severe weather patterns are accelerating. These changes, coupled with other global dynamics, will devastate homes, land, and infrastructure. Climate change may exacerbate water scarcity and lead to sharp increases in food costs. The pressures caused by climate change will influence resource competition while placing additional burdens on economies, societies, and governance institutions and around the world. These effects are threat multipliers that will aggravate stressors abroad, such as poverty, environmental degradation, political instability, and social tensions, conditions that can enable terrorist activity and other forms of violence. Thousands of people in Tokyo have rallied against nuclear power as the government and utilities prepare to restart reactors in southern Japan. More than 5,000 protesters gathered at Hibiya Park in Tokyo on Saturday to pressure the government not to restart the country's nuclear power stations. Japan is prone to earthquakes. We have to seriously think about whether nuclear power is a good idea for Japan, said protester Masatoshi Harada. This is an opportunity for Japan to drop nuclear power. Regulators are currently reviewing whether to let Kyushu Electrical Power restart 2 reactors at its Sendai power plant. Saturday's demonstration came days after the country marked the 3rd anniversary of a 9.0 magnitude earthquake that struck North Japan in 2011. The Water Rights Protection Act, which would prohibit the federal government from seizing privately acquired water rights used on federal lands, arrives for debate on the U.S. House of Representatives floor Thursday. H.R. 3189, sponsored by Representative Scott Tipton, Representative Cortez, and co-sponsored by 15 Western members of Congress, stems from the ski industry's now 3-year-old fight with the agency, which sought in 2011 to revise permit regulations to require ski areas to transfer water rights used on public lands over to the Forest Service. The ski industry, which sued to stop implementation of the new water rights clause, argues the permit change amounts to illegal takings of private property. The Forest Service says the water regulation is a return to original policy outlined by the 1986 National Forest Service Ski Area Permit Act and keeps water resources connected to public land. A U.S. District Court judge in December 2012 overturned the water clause and required the Forest Service to gather public input on the change to federal permitting. Tipton's bill would prevent the Forest Service, along with any federal agency in the Department of the Interior and Department of Agriculture, from making the transfer of water rights a condition of any land permit. Antarctica's Ross Sea is one of the few polar regions where summer sea ice coverage has increased during the last few decades, bucking a global trend of drastic declines in summer sea ice across the Arctic Ocean and in 2 adjacent embayments of the Southern Ocean around Antarctica. But now, a modeling study led by Professor Walker Smith of the Virginia Institute of Marine Science suggests that the Ross Sea's recent observed increase in summer sea ice cover is likely short-lived, with the area projected to lose more than half its summer sea ice by 2050 and more than 3/4 by 2100. These changes, say Smith, will significantly impact marine life in what is one of the world's most productive and unspoiled marine ecosystems, where rich blooms of phytoplankton feed krill, fish, and high predators such as whales, penguins, and seals. Thank you. We are broadcasting from the Trinidad Treetop, where we are protesting clear-cut logging by Green Diamond, who wishes to cut over 400,000 acres of California's forests, including old-growth redwoods and Douglas firs.